That was good.
Was it?
Yeah.
Just the last page of the day.
That it must be.
Whoa, lights. Good afternoon, everybody. So we've got a great of the media publishing side of the business. I'm gonna just have everybody go down the roll here and introduce themselves, your title, what you do, stuff like that, because I will mess that up. Please, sir.
So thanks, Mike. Jonathan Simpson-Bint. I'm Twitch's Chief Revenue Officer, so I run Twitch's global sales organization.
I'm Sarah Iooss from Viacom. I head up the business development team, so leading our partnerships.
I'm Madati from BET Networks, and I oversee all of the digital activities for the network.
Hi, I'm John Najarian, and I oversee news and digital for E!
Hi, I'm Tonia O'Connor. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer, and I oversee content distribution for Univision Communications.
All right. So, big broad question here is that in the media industry, it's increasingly, you're seeing in the television business specifically, you're seeing it's increasingly difficult to get anybody to watch anything live. You see this with DVRs. There's tons of catch-up viewing. People are addicted to binging. You can't even get people to watch the NFL in the same numbers that you used to. So you might ask, why are we rushing towards this live phenomenon when the world is becoming this all about on-demand, I program myself kind of phenomenon? Why is this going on now? Anybody want to grab that one?
I think the mobile phone and the merge between mobile and social is driving this need to know now, right? And this constant communication. So I think where television doesn't really have that perspective or capability, social and mobile do. So football games, certainly television's the best medium to watch a football game. You can certainly, go live on Twitter if you wanna go along with it. But for that always-on experience, if something is trending right now in our situation with pop culture stories, people want to talk about what's happening in the moment, and that's when they want to do it, and they've got their phone with them, and they're not necessarily in front of a television. So that's what we're saying.
That sort of implies that will this, and I'm speaking very broadly about this, as if like the live, you could pin down what live streaming is going to be all about. But is it going to be mostly about events or things that happen out of nowhere, or is it going to be about scheduled television and trying to engineer viewing moments? I don't know if we know that answer yet, but you guys have thoughts on that?
So in my role, I work across all of the brands at Viacom, and I think one of the most exciting things that I've seen out of our experiments and our growth in live is that what's really working from an audience perspective is so different. And it really runs the gamut. So with MTV, there could be something like a big moment like the VMA announcements for the nominations, which is highly produced. We engaged artists to make it. That did very well. Also, the opening monologue from Trevor Noah, if we're putting that on Facebook Live, and again, that performs really well. So something that was really more outside, not produced for television, versus something that's made for television, both did phenomenally well. And then there's the idea that you could have participation with the audience. So we've done like live after shows with VH1 that have also done really well. So I don't think we know the answer yet, but it's really fun to see the audience loving all different sorts of genres.
That's interesting. Why do you think it's not easy to get young people to tune in for Trevor Noah or any late night shows live because they're so addicted to watching clips the next day? So why do you think there's urgency around catching him on Facebook Live? Is it just because it's new? Is it participatory? Is it the nature of it that's different? Why do you think that is?
I think part of it is mobile, so they might already be there. And also the idea that their friends are doing it, and you can participate. So I think participation is a huge part of it, expressing yourself in the moment and reacting as a fan to a piece of content.
I would say that I think for the users that are on Facebook, for that generation, it's just, that's TV for them. Right. Like we all talk about, millennials or I think, Gen Z, they don't watch TV. It's not true. It's just they have a different definition for it. So it's just natural that we would start doing live there. There's already an audience there. And at Univision, we started about a month ago, we started a daily newscast at noon that we distribute not only on Facebook Live, but also on YouTube. and also on our linear network. I know, traditional linear TV, I know, bad word in here, but it's all informed by the social platform. Not only do we have the hot news topics and breaking news of the day, but we're also incorporating what's trending on social media. And Sarah said it right. It's about the instant, engagement that the viewers can have with our talent, and we're reacting to that in real time, which obviously we can't do on network news. But this is their version of television, and I don't know. None of us know exactly what is going to work. So we're all experimenting, but I certainly believe there's a place for it.
And are you going for an at-work audience? Like I'm thinking about HuffPost tried this for a couple of years, and they really tried to make it almost like something you do at your lunch hour. You catch up over news or the latest headlines, or is that really more about people that are out and about on their phone? Do you know?
You know what? The beautiful thing about Facebook is if you think about I'm there, my kids are there. The millennial, the cool kids that work for me, they're there. So I think consumption and the content that's going to work is going to come in a variety of forms, just like a cable channel lineup.
Right.
There's not just one kind of content or one genre that works on a cable channel lineup. It's a whole variety, and I think the same is true of these platforms. In many ways, it's just the next wave of cable television.
Hey, Mike, I think the challenge for us content producers is going to be prioritizing and figuring out how we publish content and tell narrative story on a platform-by-platform basis, tool basis, across a myriad of places that we normally didn't do. So if you look at BET 5 years ago, it was maybe you publish to your online and your linear, right? Now, as we think about multi-platform content publishing and user experiences, you go television, digital, mobile, third-party platforms that you don't own, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and live. And so for me, when we go to a BET Awards or even behind a show, it's not, oh, today I'm going to use live and then tomorrow it's going to be Instagram. It's how am I trying to tell story across all of these things, probably at the same time, understanding that each of the platforms have different user expectations and user engagement models and business models, and having to go to market that way 100% of the time with the same amount of resources and dollars that you have. I mean, it's a challenge and an opportunity, and I'm not quite sure that any of us have figured it out perfectly quite yet.
And you can't just, I don't think you can just repurpose what you already got for all these different platforms, right?
No, you know what? That's the short way in, and we see lots of people doing it, but it doesn't work. And that hasn't worked for us. We're on Snapchat, I think we're looking at almost 90% original programming. Maybe we'll do some throwbacks to some old highlights of some of our shows, but it's 90% original programming, told complementary maybe to some of the linear stuff that you may have, but completely different takes on the understanding that users use this platform differently, have different user expectations to it, and you have to deliver against that.
Jonathan, we were talking about whether this younger generation really wants to watch live anything anymore. I think people, when you guys were acquired by Amazon a couple years ago, I think people in the industry, there's a good number of people in the industry that were like, I didn't know anyone watched people play video games at all, right, let alone live. I wonder if you still encounter that surprise in the industry, or is it hard to explain why there's so much urgency and fandom that people gather to watch video games all hours of the day?
Yeah, we still are evangelizing to a large extent, I think. The fact that YouTube and Facebook have now sort of piled into the live space has given us sort of a lot of credibility. It means there's more we actually really like it. It means there's more voices in the marketplace talking up the importance of live. I think people get it. Certainly, I think anyone with sort of like kids between the ages of 9 and sort of 18 or whatever, really, really high chance that their kids are on Twitch in some way or other. And lots of people we meet, their kids are actually devoted to Twitch. You know, we present to agencies, to clients, and so on, and people will just sort of say, "Yeah, the reason you're here is because my kids love Twitch," and we want to get to the bottom. We want to get to the bottom of it. You know, what does Twitch mean? What is going on? And we end up actually having that conversation a lot with people, which is, what has Twitch replaced? Because if all these people are spending 2 hours a day on, the average person is spending 2 hours a day on Twitch, something else has been squeezed out somewhere. And then also people are really curious as to what does this mean, that kids want to consume tons of content and interact with personalities and so on, and interact with the community on this games platform, or a platform devoted to games.
Right. And I imagine you get the question lately, is this why the NFL is messed up? Are these fans, is this the replacement for sports for this generation?
Absolutely, we get that question a lot, and the answer to that is actually we have no idea. You know, internally at Twitch, we still occasionally have this conversation. Well, what will Twitch be when it grows up? You know, Twitch is 5 years old,
right?
And in some ways, you can kind of see that 5 years from now, Twitch might look very different to what it is today, as we go into different sort of verticals and so on. But that's definitely part of the conversation we have.
Right.
Yeah, you know, tied to that, I'd also say, I mean, we keep talking about it as live streaming. When you get up to 10 minutes, and to keep somebody's attention at 10 minutes, that is actually live programming. And that brings in a whole nother level of engagement and expectations in terms of how you produce actually good live programming. Maybe you'll hit lightning in a bottle and have a young woman in the car raving about her Chewbacca mask, and you'll get millions and millions of people watching it. But most of us are trying to keep people and eyeballs engaged beyond the 2-minute mark, and it gets hard. And what you begin to realize, while it doesn't have to be highly produced, you still have to make it compelling content, and you still have to be telling relevant stories in that marketplace, and that is actually a real challenge.
Do you guys feel like if, maybe Twitch is a phenomenon of its own, but would most big media companies be pushing hard into this space if Facebook didn't want us all to do this? You know, like if this is clearly something that Facebook cares about and Zuckerberg cares about, and media companies kind of have to follow their lead sometimes. Like, if this wasn't a big deal to Facebook, would we all be on this panel?
Well, I'll speak for Univision. We actually are unique because over 90% of our viewing on traditional TV is live. So the expectation with our audience and with our consumer is that we're going to be live. And our number one goal is that we want to be anywhere that our consumer is and where they're engaged. And they happen to be on Facebook. So we would be pursuing this, and we would be experimenting with this, yes.
We've been doing live on eOnline since 2012. Daily show, 5 days a week, 9:30 in the morning. We're still doing it. Now we just put it on Facebook. I don't think this panel would be here talking about live if Facebook didn't turn the fire hose on it,
right?
Such as they did. And I don't think, I think it helps that they've made it a top priority for Facebook. So we all know how big Facebook is. We all know it's a global platform. We all have global brands here that want that exposure and want that audience. And if Facebook sees it as a priority and knows their audience that well, and I do think there is a place for, this experience you talk about, customizing experiences based on platforms. Facebook is about community. It is about leaning forward and leading into the story and the conversation. When we started our live program on eOnline initially, it was about more the water cooler discussion. You would come in and you're going to see us essentially in the green room preparing for the day's stories and talking about them as they come in, not reporting the news as just kind of repeating what is a television environment, which is sit back, tell me the news. I want our audience to want to participate. So it's a lot of what I think you see today in television and news on air is a lot of talk. It's kind of that talk radio format everyone talks about. The difference is you can actually holler back at the folks on the panel and get your opinion in as a consumer. So I think it's an interesting new way in for all brands that have a voice and a take on whatever categories that they feel like they own.
I think we would definitely be here talking about it because co-creation and fan engagement have been so important at Viacom for years and years. And I would also look beyond Facebook. For us, I think we look at Snapchat and live stories and our partnership with Snapchat as really foundational in our live practice. We have a calendar of events that we know are coming. It really helps us organize our business around live in an elevated way. A lot of experimentation is happening on Facebook for us. We love Facebook Live, but I think there is so much more than just that in the live arena right now.
I think we would be here, and I think actually Facebook. I don't think Facebook are dry. I appreciate the point that Facebook are making it very imperative for people, but I actually think that this live thing, I think to some degree, it's actually us reflecting the culture. It's what people want. We live in a really experiential culture, and live is a way to sort of have an experience in your den or in your bedroom or whatever. And I think people really like that. And so I said to you earlier that I don't think Twitch sort of invented this community that exists so much as this, we created a platform, and this community was there, and this became the place where they could express themselves. So I think live is it's in our culture at the moment. It's something that people want. It's a format that people want to express themselves in.
That's interesting. Do you guys think that because we're in this era where you can binge your whatever show and you go four seasons deep into whatever, and not you're your own television schedule, do we miss that communal experience that we all watch the same thing together, or like we're all watching the last episode of whatever big show? Do we sort of miss that? And is this phenomenon something of a replacement for that?
Well, I don't know whether it actually ever disappeared. It might have moved from my living room into the virtual living room, but that idea that you can actually watch topical things, whether it's sports live or shows, and actually engage. I mean, if you were paying attention to Walking Dead last night or the night before last, I think.
Really gross.
You would think across Twitter, across Facebook, across a bunch of different things that there was a large conversation going on. So I think the way that those conversations, those water cooler conversations, have evolved over time.
Right. Tonia, tell us about stuff that it's been a very interesting year politically, let's say. I think you guys have done a lot of live stuff, live coverage of various big political events this year. Can you maybe talk about some of what you've learned and what you've experienced there?
Yeah, so at Univision in the portfolio, not only do we have a Spanish language news service, but also with Fusion, we have English language. So obviously the election has been, somebody said it earlier, the gift that keeps on giving. So we've done a ton around the coverage of the election and the debates. I think around 550 events that we've done on Facebook Live. And it's been, the reaction has been tremendous. I mean, the consumer is driving this. I mean, and that's just the great thing about all of these platforms, is that in real time, we can, we get their feedback, we get their input, and we can respond to that. We don't have to sit back and wait for the Nielsen ratings to come in and see, did it work, did it not work, and try to guess, and are those accurate ratings, or are they not accurate ratings? It's right there. And that's extremely valuable. And we're iterating, we're being responsive. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you make content, there's nothing better than having immediate response.
How do you capitalize on this crazy ride that's going to be over in a couple weeks, maybe?
I think it's just beginning, right?
Yeah, I mean, are there things you can take from what you guys have learned this year and apply them to the next calendar year, where there's not going to be this massive news event that everyone's following like crazy?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the daily news show that we're doing, and I want to make sure it's clear that even though we put that on our on our network and all of our local stations, that is created for Facebook and for YouTube, so for the social platform. So it's very unique in that we're then the alternate platform in this case is traditional TV, and because it was said earlier that this audience doesn't want just what we have on the traditional or the linear networks and just to transfer that over to these platforms.
Right.
It has to be created, and it is a difficult one to monetize because Facebook is going to look different than Snapchat and from YouTube, and it's expensive, and monetization is challenging, especially in today's environment.
I want to get into the monetization thing in a bit. I'd love to get into some more specific examples of content and programming genres. Sarah, you guys are doing something interesting you just announced this week in Australia, right? That is using the live social video phenomenon to help you program on linear television, right? Can you maybe talk about what?
Sure. So actually, the Viacom Labs, which is a new division at Viacom, they worked with MTV Australia to do a experiment in which fans could essentially hand raise and actually appear live via a feed on air dancing to a track. And I think what's really exciting about this is it's totally collapsing that distance between the fan and the content expression. It's happening live and in the moment. They're able to participate in that moment of fame kind of way. And if we're a network that wants to reflect our audience, like what better way than to leverage the technology of live to do that? So it's something that we're really excited about. And we hope to see even more of across the rest of the platforms. Yeah.
Jonathan, you guys are also have news this week. You're doing some new live cooking series, and you've also had, interestingly enough, had success with food-related content with old Julia Child stuff. That's weird. Why is that on Twitch?
It's completely weird.
Why does that make sense?
It's totally weird.
And
yeah.
What's the insight there? What's the plan? What are the plans?
So we don't have any grand sort of world domination plans. We're experimenting with a few things. We experimented earlier this year by broadcasting all of the Bob Ross painting shows. Bob Ross, the guy with the afro, used to be on PBS. Yeah. You guys, I always tell people who Bob Ross is because I grew up in England, so he's completely new to me. That was a huge success. 16 million people tuned in across 5 days, hundreds of millions of hours, billions of minutes of viewing. So then we did a Julia Childs marathon, and again, it was a huge success. People were all over it. It actually ended, it ran from sort of Monday to Friday. On the Saturday morning, practically all the big broadcasters on Twitch had taken their cameras, put them in the kitchen, and were cooking. They weren't broadcasting video games, they were broadcasting themselves making literally cheese on toast and pancakes and all this stuff. And it was very, very unsanitary, I can tell you that much. It was pretty scary watching some of these people. But the community just got into this and thought, okay, this is really cool. They started to broadcast themselves cooking. Of course, they went back to video games later in the day or the following day. But it just showed that there's this appetite there. And we've just actually announced, in fact, today, I think Variety picked it up today, that we're actually launching a show, I think on Monday, which is actually from Al Roker's organization. And I think it's actually Shock Chef. And it's a guy who's a gamer, who's got a lot of, a big following, and he's actually also a really great chef, a sort of storied chef. So he'll be broadcasting a mix of playing games and cooking.
And it's so interesting, it's not like you can't find food videos online on demand all day long, right? But there's something about the community seems to want to do this together.
Yeah, and they like to chat. The Twitch experience is very, very reliant on chat. Huge percentage of our audience engage in chat. They the broadcaster is broadcasting and is talking, and they see messages in the chat and they respond to those, so people are effective. There's a two-way communication going on, and it's really sticky. People really like it, and then the community chats amongst itself as well. It's just a really sort of visceral, really entertaining experience.
Interesting. Okay, you've done, tell me if I'm right, I think you've done some stuff around big events like BET Awards. What are some interesting programming attempts you've made in this space?
Yeah, I think our most interesting stuff is, we definitely do things around the award shows and all of those things. I don't know whether that's revolutionary, but I think the real opportunity that showed us some real, maybe the future for us in some ways, is been around the Black Lives Matter movement around the country. Which has allowed us to not have to ship in an entire news crew into different places and send our people really out into the crowd and out into the audience and capture content and feed it back either for live or for later and taped as package shows or even straight to digital and into our apps on a regular basis. And so for me, I don't necessarily look at it as a be-all and end-all of anything, but really as an extension of how in some places live is exactly what you want to do, and in other places you're going to go and bring an entire crew of people. And that has resonated well with our audience. It also, for a network that is more than just a television network, we see ourselves as a part of the community in general. This allows our audience to get up close and personal and feel like that they are part of the content that we're producing for the network. We've actually gone as far as hiring people, whether they be YouTube influencers or Snapchat influencers, to also be our voice in some areas. We went to all of the conventions like everybody else. I think you saw, I'd imagine every network on here did something around the conventions and so on and so forth. So it's a cheap and effective and still mass reach way for us to be able to get into places that might not be easy for us to get into.
Cool. John, what have you seen since you moved your daily show from? I'm sorry, I think you stream shows twice a day, right? Am I wrong about that?
Once a day mostly, unless something else breaks.
Okay. So what's it been like from going from your own site to Facebook in terms of audience numbers, response, format?
I mean, audience numbers have gone up considerably, obviously. The format changed modestly, mostly to grab more of the commentary coming from the audience into the show itself. We've also recently rolled out a show called TV Therapy. We have another one called So True, So False, which is more of a kind of think of a gaming experience, right? Where you're kind of having the audience guess along with you, and then we tell them how the story actually went. We have another show which I can kind of announce here. It's rolling out on Thursday this week called Freestyle, which is going to be around the fashion and beauty space, something E has got a long legacy and history in. We also have Ulta Beauty on as a partner in that show. So we're very excited about the evolution, if you will, of this format, and we continue to evolve it every day. It's something you learn from as you go.
It's relatively early. Do you see a decent amount of on-demand viewing of this content, or is it all mostly 90%?
It's mostly live.
Yeah.
It's closer to 90%. It's between probably 75 to 90%, depending on the show.
Because it's, I mean, by nature, kind of perishable as news.
It kind of is, and it's harder to go find those older feeds as well.
Right.
Once
Yes,
especially when you've
Facebook
got a lot
video
of
is
repeats.
search is brutal.
Yeah, YouTube is for search.
Yeah.
Facebook is for live and now.
All right, let's get into the business side of things, because Facebook is paying a number of companies to do this. I don't know if anybody's getting paid by Facebook. Let's talk about it if you are. I'd love to tell me exactly how much. But like in general, web video has been relatively simple to monetize. Maybe that's too simple of a way to put it, but pre-roll advertising kind of worked for a lot of advertisers. It was easy. Live is different in that I think Facebook right now is testing some 15-second ad insertions. Other platforms do it differently. Branded content, I think there's some experimenting, but I don't think it's a ton of business. But like, what have you guys seen in terms of, is this expensive? Is it hard to monetize right now? And where should it go? I don't know, maybe we could start with you, Tonia.
Yes and yes.
Yes.
I mean, we're all creating original content for unique platforms, and yeah, that's expensive. And the monetization is not caught up. Measurement and monetization is not yet caught up, which is to be expected.
Yeah.
I'd like to think of it, and it's just kind of the part of the business that I grew up in, but how do we ultimately get to a dual revenue stream? Because that is, that I think for the long term, to have a real sustainable business here, that's probably where it needs to go.
Right.
And, as you see Snapchat kind of change its business
Change the
model a little
rules,
bit,
yeah.
I think that's a possibility.
Right.
And will subscriptions follow?
So notwithstanding the incentives that some of these companies may be giving us as publishers, I don't think that that's the reason that we're on this. That we have to actually play and see how this is going to evolve and go. I'll tell you from the monetization side for us, I'm not waiting for Facebook to figure out whether they're going to insert ads, pre-roll, post-roll, and all of that stuff. We're looking at this as an overarching package for an advertiser, and we have to look at it multi-platform. So you might be buying digital, social, and live as well as an overarching package, and the advertisers who want to go along for the ride and want to be connected to the 360 content opportunity are following us. But yeah, eventually people are going to start asking harder questions and require a little bit more. But right now, I think we have to figure it out. And what I said before actually is not unimportant. When you get to 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you are actually producing live programming, and that is not just somebody in front of a phone or a camera, and you're actually having to figure out, like, what do you want to say and how do you want to keep people engaged, and that is an expensive endeavor.
What have the ads looked like so far? Has it mostly been like they're brought to you by kind of traditional sponsored messages, or have you done branded content in live events?
Yes and yes. We have found creative ways to package up our advertising partners into the live offerings, whether it's backdrops, where you're actually doing the live. I mean, we do a behind the scenes live execution for McDonald's and Coca-Cola outside of our BET Awards all the time. Right. So those are kinds of the extensions rather than inserting ads into the stream.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that you said something really important about packaging. So I look at this through the lens of our holistic partnership with the platform. So if you look at Twitter, for example, Amplify as a product allows us to use that as a packaging force for Periscope. So we're able to just apply a live element within an existing framework for advertisers, something that the marketplace is familiar with, something that our team is familiar with producing. So that's been very effective for us. On the Snapchat side, again, we have, I almost look at it as foundational. Those live stories are those big moments. We work together with the Snapchat team, and we create a large package that brings in Discover inventory and other multi-platform elements and to create something bigger.
Right.
And I would say for Facebook, it's creative right now. It's still experimental, but we're finding ways to leverage branded content and put it into the branded content box for Facebook.
And I still think there's room for bespoke advertising within bespoke content for the platform. So, with Ulta Beauty and this freestyle show that we're rolling out, it's going to be very integrated, the experience for Ulta in that live setting. With Snapchat, you might have our Snapchat show, The Rundown, might have completely different. Obviously, it doesn't take it's not branded experiences inside the content, but it is adjacent. Short video that obviously you try to make as close and aligned to the type of and format of the content as possible, so it seems seamless and people don't want to click out. So in addition to that, we try to package it up as they do at Viacom across all of the e-news inventory, whether it's a television show or it's our website,
Right.
And those other experiences. But we're just trying to make sure we are as relevant to the audience and by being relative to the audience, you're obviously going to be relevant for the advertiser. And we need to create those experiences inside each one of those. And I think we have to do it bespokely. If you just throw the sponsored logo up, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah. I wonder, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mike. Well, I was just going to say that we do about 90% of our ad revenue comes from really bespoke content. That's what we do. When we started the ad org, the sales org 3 years ago, the first people we hired were creative people. We have a sort of, they function as an agency really, and people come to us, give us their sort of goals, and we translate that for the audience. And what we try to do is really take somebody's brand message and put it into a language that the audience understands. And frequently the audience participate in that in some way. The most successful things that we do are things where basically the execution is really creative, it's really authentic, it allows the audience to participate in some way with the brand in creating some kind of experience together. And it works really, really well. We do a lot of this stuff, and we've yet to have, touch wood, an experience where the community, which has a very powerful sense of its own voice and its own sort of discernment, react badly to an execution. So it's good.
So that's the majority of your ad business. It's not like you're 80% pre-roll and then we do this once or twice a year.
Right.
And
no, we do executions every weekend. We have stuff going on every weekend.
Because I always wonder if brands are, you mentioned like familiarity really helps. Like if it's like TV, I can just move, I can buy the same way. Is it hard to get them to, the live's new, the numbers are, I don't know how great measurement is yet. Like is it easier just to like are you waiting for mid-rolls to come because that'll just be really easy for brands, or do you have to say, hey, you got to take a chance with us and try a really integrated package, and that's, we got to learn together. Like, is that the kind of approach you have to take?
Yeah, yes, for us.
Yes, on the latter. I think we have to go, and it challenges our sales colleagues to have different conversations, right? If it's just about selling impressions, live may not be the right answer for you.
Yeah.
But packaged into a large offering that wraps the brand around a content experience in multiple ways, I think you've got a lot of advertisers looking for that kind of connectivity with an audience.
Right.
I think as numbers grow, though, I would push for something more scalable and a type of inventory and a type of ad within live that will allow for dollars to flow more freely and to support and substantiate the investment that's going in. I agree wholeheartedly.
Check, 1, 2. Mary had a little lamb.
Yes, she did.
You know, the perils of live content.
Oh, this live thing,
yes.
yeah, it never worked.
I think you're saying it's going to
Yeah.
be.
So I'm voting for ads to be a little bit more scalable in their nature. I think we're all for creative, and we love doing branded content and we love having the 360 package, but it's expensive and we need to be able to substantiate the
And
investment.
time consuming, it's your right.
Yeah.
How is, it's early and it's hard to generalize because we're talking about Facebook and YouTube and is measurement just as good as most of web video, as good as television, all over the place? Any big gaping holes you guys are feeling? John?
It's not perfect. I don't know which platform is perfect.
Yeah.
I look at this business as one, I said this earlier today, it's a business in development, right? We are truly at the very early innings of this. Measurement is catching up. I think Facebook Insights gives us at least a tool. Snapchat has its tool set as well. And an advertiser is going to want to know, especially in the world of digital, they want to know how, the exposure for their brand, and especially in an integrated format. You're talking about if you do a 40-minute show, where was my brand visible in that show, and how many people were seeing it, and who were those people that were seeing it during that show? So I think measurement will catch up very quickly, and I know there's companies, one presenting here too, that are starting to showcase those capabilities.
Yeah, and I think it makes it hard that each one of these platforms have different definitions for views. Or,
You don't trust Facebook counting for you?
I love my Facebook colleagues. I love my Facebook colleagues. No, I think it's standards are going to matter in this space, and we all got to be talking apples to apples. But a Snapchat view is not the same as a Facebook view or a YouTube view, and how that gets packaged up to a client or as an opportunity has to be is complex right now.
Yeah.
I would still argue that for the purpose of currency, though, measurement is sort of suggesting right now in live that we are back at a CPV or a CPM model versus a CPE or some kind of engagement metric. So right now, in terms of how measurement relates to currency, counting and scale is still what we're looking at as an industry.
Right, whether we think it's the right thing for the long term or
Exactly.
not. Interesting. Clock is ticking really fast. I have more questions, but are there audience questions? Should we let some folks jump in? I can barely see. Sir? There's a mic coming.
You had talked about taking some of your online programming that was made for YouTube and posting on television. How is that working in the online space? Is the content you're making on Facebook something that you can repurpose and archive on YouTube, or are you thinking about those as completely different types of content?
Right now, we're doing the same show, the daily news show for both Facebook and for YouTube. And then, as I said, we're putting it onto our linear channel. We're still developing that audience on linear, but in terms of monetization and growth, I mean, I think the real thing that we all need to crack as media companies is how can we inform some of our traditional television programming from what's happening on digital. And I don't know of any examples in the marketplace that have really cracked that one, but that's a way to get the digital audience over to linear television. That's something that we're definitely focused on and trying to experiment with.
That's interesting. Where is YouTube in live for you guys? Is it as a big priority Depends.
It's such an on-demand search, and it's, you know, everyone knows this. It's been here, has heard, I think, from others, but it is such a, it's the second biggest search engine on the internet behind Google. And that's what people go to. They go there to find specific things. Live just hasn't stepped out of that window yet. And you know, Snapchat's a very curated experience. Facebook has the ability to curate in a feed format and decide what's gonna resonate most. So YouTube's got to figure out how to make that content surface more effectively.
Any more?
Hi, great panel. John, this question's for you. Yes, John
Got it.
Najarian.
Very good.
Did I pronounce that right?
Pretty close.
You said that you're doing an integration with Ulta Beauty for one of your new integrated content shows. And I'd like to know from a sales perspective, who are you all speaking with at the agency? Would it be the digital team? Would it be the TV team? Or would it be the content integration team? And who exactly makes the decision to want to come forward to place dollars against live streaming video?
Wow,
Applause for the question. I like
that's a really good question. And I'll let others jump in. I'll jump in here as well. You know, yeah. I mean, our sales organization is quite, you know, significant in the television space, and that's where a lot of our entry points start. So a lot of times it starts with a TV buyer, and we work our way into the digital, sometimes crossing over to the digital agency in that conversation. So it's often a mix. It's not always a digital first buyer that's interested. It's somebody who buys from us across the portfolio, and a lot of times that's how they enter in for us. Not saying that's the only way in. I think there are many other ways in as well. For us, that's been the easy way in.
Yeah, I think the larger commitments end up being multi-platform. And as much as I love our digital space, we're going to be a smaller piece of the pie. So you end up having to talk to the television budgets to begin some of the larger multi-platform commitments that we execute.
I think you need to take advantage of that well-lit buying cycle of the television upfront and make sure that you have digital ideas sort of in front and in focus for, you know, buyers across all different platforms. But you know, we'd be fools to not take advantage of the television upfront to get these bigger deals done.
But I still think there's room for, I mean, obviously digital agencies, digital-only buyers out there that clearly know and are certainly paying attention to this space even more so.
I mean, in our case, we have brands that want to be in front of our audience, you know, in Hispanic and multicultural. So a lot of times we're sitting down with them and trying to ideate and think of ways in which we can get them there. So creating content and shows with them.
All right, we're over our time here. Thanks everybody for a terrific panel. Thanks a lot.